So Trump came out and said, I got the booster shot, and he made a pro-vaccine argument, and one of his biggest stands is now totally and completely done with him. And he went on an insane rant, ripping Trump to shreds. I'm, of course, talking about Alex Jones. Now, I have no idea how I even found this video, since he's basically been almost completely kicked off the internet. He's on some outlet called ban.video or something like that. And is this a doozy. Here's Alex Jones absolutely losing it over Trump saying something reasonable.
Take credit for it. Take credit for it. It's a great, what we've done is historic.
Once again, sign on to it. Take credit for it. Just sign on, believe it. I mean, hell, we're fighting Bill Gates and Fauci and Biden and the New World Order and Psaki and the Davos Group and Peter Daszak. And now we got Trump on their team. Let's continue.
Don't let them take it away. Don't take it away from ourselves. You're playing right into their hands when you sort of like, oh, the vaccine. If you don't want to take it, you shouldn't be forced to take it. No mandates, but take credit because we saved tens of millions of lives.
No, take credit.
Don't let them take that away from you.
Okay, so the president made news.
Do you agree with that? Okay.
The only thing he said true was you shouldn't have to take it.
Both the president and I are vaxxed, and did you get the booster?
Yes.
I got it too. Okay, so...
Don't.
I mean, the globalists are injecting children with deadly poison everywhere that they know erases their immune system, and Trump is running around in his stupid red tie, playing the part of the apprentice CEO, telling everybody, oh, you're playing into their hands, not taking their shot. No, Trump, you are playing into their hands and destroying yourself and signing yourself onto the New World Order. And that idiot Bill O'Reilly, what a pervert. Doesn't even know how to pick women up. It's all just an incredible joke. I mean, seriously, just let everybody have what you want. Let Schiff and Pelosi rob you. Let them molest your children. Let them take your 4-year-olds away and chop their genitals off. You love it. Everybody's too busy with their own life and their own thing and their own this and their own candy-ass BS to wake up out of the coma that there is a satanic, off-world alien attack going on this planet. I mean, you look at it, you analyze it, this ain't human. And you people need to wake up and rally against it, or maybe we are a bad species. Maybe this thing wiping us out's good.
What? By the way, that wasn't a one-off. He goes on to elaborate on the idea that this is, and I quote, satanic, off-world, alien attack on this planet. This ain't human. That wasn't hyperbole, that wasn't metaphorical. He goes on and continues to argue that this is from another planet. What's happening now is from another planet. It's an orchestrated attack by aliens. Literal aliens. So if you're imagining, like little green people with the big eyes, he is referring to them, to that. Whatever your conception of some otherworldly being is, or beings are, I don't know how to talk, but you get the point. That's what he's talking about. Alex Jones. So let's go through a bunch of what he says here. He's like, we're over here fighting Bill Gates and Fauci and Biden and the New World Order and the Davos Group, and Trump's now signing on with them. Okay, so, see, this is the problem. I mean, there's a lot of problems with Alex Jones, but I think this is one of the reasons why, putting aside all the newer, more insane stuff, the alien stuff, otherworldly, satanic, blah, 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 but this is why he was able to originally amass a following, is because what Alex Jones likes to do is take something that has a little grain of truth in it and then extrapolate it to Cuckooville. So, yeah, when he goes after Bill Gates and Fauci, it's like, well, okay, I get why you go after Fauci. He's a liar. He lied about masks early on being effective. Or he said you don't need to wear masks at a time when you definitely did need to wear masks. Fauci was one of the people who was laughing off the idea that maybe this came from a lab in Wuhan. And meanwhile, there were emails that were unearthed where he was behind the scenes. He was like, yeah, this very well could have come from that lab. I mean, there's a lab in Wuhan that studies literal bat coronaviruses, and this is a bat coronavirus. And the idea was called insane that maybe this is from the lab. And he was saying it's insane publicly, while behind the scenes he was like, oh, it very well could have come from the lab. And also Trump was the one who was like, hey, maybe it did. And because Trump said it, then it became a huge partisan issue, and all the Democrats were like, that's crazy, that's stupid. So yeah, Fauci's a liar, and we know he's a liar. So when you go after Fauci, when you go after Bill Gates, who is a scam artist, this guy's a billionaire who's obsessed with patent protections. That's how he made all his money. And his big contribution to the pandemic, he's not a public health expert, but he took over the reins of international public health, and he set up this COVAX program, which is like, we'll vaccinate the world using charity. They haven't even hit like 10% of their goal, but the whole point of COVAX is don't lift the patent protection so everybody can get a vaccine in the world. Don't do that. Let us do it through charity instead, and this way, let Moderna and Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson and the big pharmaceutical companies make all the money in the world, rip everybody off, price gouge like crazy, and let's basically keep vaccines from the developing world as I pretend like I'm the good guy and I'm going to vaccinate the developing world, even though I'm not even close to hitting anywhere near my goal. So, look, there's a grain of truth in going after Bill Gates and Fauci and saying how they're bad. But then, you know, he takes it to this absurd extent. Oh, there's a new world order. What does that mean? The conspiracy is not nearly as coordinated as Alex Jones likes to think it is. The conspiracy is out in the open. The conspiracy is the run-of-the-mill corruption and incompetence. Everything that's wrong in this country and around the world can be explained through rank incompetence and money in politics that corporations and billionaires have owned the government. Now, by the way, he likes to posture as a populist, but then ask Alex Jones, do you want to raise Bill Gates' taxes? Do you want to raise his taxes and redistribute that to give people health care and college and paid time off? He doesn't. So he acts like he's a populist, but ultimately a lot of the policies he prefers would help the globalists and the elites and the ruling class. So then he goes on. He takes the grain of truth that, hey, Bill Gates is bad, Fauci's bad, and then he goes insane and he starts saying stuff like the globalists are injecting children with deadly poison that erases their immune system. The whole point of a vaccine, Alex Jones, is the opposite. It's to strengthen your immune system. It's to prepare your immune system for actually getting the virus. So if you inject, the way a vaccine works, if you inject basically a shell of the virus, a little dead piece of the virus into your body, then your body learns to create the antibodies and the T cell response to go after that particular kind of virus. But now, since it's a vaccine, it can't replicate in your body, so it's not going to harm you. So now you may have mild symptoms after a vaccine. The reason for that is your immune system is reacting to what the actual coronavirus would look like in your body. So the things you feel, you may or may not feel after a vaccine, it's directly tied to your body learning how to fight off COVID, so that if you actually get COVID, you're going to be okay. And we know that. A French study, over 20 million people, the vaccines reduce severe illness, hospitalization, and death by 90%. Because that's the way a vaccine works. Now, he says they're injecting children with deadly poison that erases their immune system. It does the opposite. It strengthens your immune system. It strengthens them. I know a number of kids who've gotten the vaccine. They're fine, dog. They're chilling. In fact, I know one who got the vaccine and now has COVID, and he's got the sniffles. And it'll be better in 2.5 days. God, he says Trump is signing himself onto the New World Order. Now, Trump isn't part of some global evil plot to give people poison and reduce the population, which is what Alex Jones is now arguing. But Trump is definitely part of the ruling elite, as we've been screaming from day one when you were coddling Trump's ballsack. So the problem with Trump is that he does serve the elites. I mean, his number one piece of legislation, his signature accomplishment, was the 2017 Trump's tax cuts. 83% of the benefits of those tax cuts goes to the top 1%. That's serving the elites and the globalists. So he is part of that club, just not in the way that Alex Jones is accusing here. And again, he had nothing to say about those things at the time. If anything, he supported Trump on that front. In his tax bill, by the way, it cuts corporate taxes, and it also incentivizes the outsourcing of U.S. jobs. And again, Alex Jones had nothing to say about it at the time, because he's not actually interested in the hard work and the details of the day-to-day and the complexities of the policy from day-to-day. That's what we cover on this show. What he does is comes up with insane conspiracy theories about how they're trying to sacrifice your children. My favorite part is that he says Bill O'Reilly's a pervert. True. True. I don't know if you guys remember the story, but Bill O'Reilly, when he was at Fox News, he was like harassing one of his producers or something. And he said, like, I want to rub a falafel all over your body. And the person was like, what? And it turns out when he was saying falafel, he couldn't think of the word loofah, and he thought the word falafel meant loofah. And so that was a very notorious moment in his creepy-ass emails. By the way, there was like zero reciprocity from this producer. And he was just like, Bill O'Reilly was just like going off, writing to this person and probably beating his meat as he's talking about falafels. So Bill O'Reilly is a pervert, that's true. But it's also totally not relevant to the conversation. And then we get let Schiff and Pelosi rob you. What? Molest your children and chop their genitals off? Let me tell you something. You want to worry about children being molested? I'm worried about that too. Which is why I talk about Jeffrey Epstein and how Bill Clinton and Donald Trump were like this with him. And in fact, we learned recently that Donald Trump was indeed on the plane a number of times, even though the Trump people thought for the longest time he wasn't. It was just Bill Clinton who was on that plane. No, it turns out Trump and Clinton were on that plane, and we all know that Jeffrey Epstein is the CEO of Child Sex Crimes Incorporated, letting billionaires commit the most heinous crimes you can imagine. And shockingly, Alex Jones to this point has said nothing about Donald Trump being on that Epstein plane. In fact, he would stand for him while going after others for being on that plane because he's a partisan hack. But now, so Trump engaging in those Epstein-like crimes, nothing to say about that. The thing that's egregious is Trump saying, hey, you should get the vaccine. It might save your life. And we'll come full circle at the end here and talk about the satanic off-world alien attack on this planet. This ain't human. It's funny because Alex Jones has leaned more into this stuff since he's been kicked off of the mainstream outlets, whether it's YouTube or Twitter or whatever. He didn't used to talk about alien stuff, and I mean, he did bring up like demon stuff every now and then. He liked to say Obama was a demon and Hillary Clinton was a demon. He said they smell like sulfur, and there was a fly that flew across Obama's face one time, and he was like, see, demon, literal demon. So he did do that a little bit, but the alien stuff is relatively new in the repertoire, and I think he's leaning more heavily into that since he's been kicked off of the major platforms. I mean, this is the stuff that how do you even respond to it? And then at the end of this video, by the way, it cuts to Alex Jones talking about, he's doing an ad for himself in his own video, and he says something like, I don't play around when it comes to the information. Oh, you don't? So you happen to know, as a matter of fact, this is a satanic attack and that aliens are on the... Come on, man. Come on, man. So, I'd like to know what percentage of his audience that still watches him is watching him because it's just entertainment, and what percentage actually believes it. And I also would like to know what goes on in Alex Jones' head. Is what he said in court true? That, look, I play a character? Or is he really crazy enough to believe the stuff that he's saying? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that. Joe Rogan seems to believe that Alex Jones really believes everything he's saying, and he's known him since the 90s. If that's the case, and I mean this sincerely, he might want to look into either bipolar medication or paranoid schizophrenia medication, because he is definitely showing symptoms of that kind of a mental illness. And it is possible you give that dude some antipsychotic meds and give him some Xanax, and all of a sudden he's like, what the fuck was I talking about? But I'll leave it up to you. Is he genuinely mentally ill, or is he just a character? I don't know, but here's Donald Trump saying the most reasonable thing he's ever said, and this is the most controversial thing he's ever said, according to Alex Jones. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.